Meatball sub, Jesus. It's definitely the meatball sub. I don't think that's Matt Fitzpatrick.
Welcome to Center Cup. I'm Kyle Miserino, joined as always by Will Neary and Nick Newmeyer, and it's preview day today. We've got a full week of action. We've got two PGA Tour events, Puerto Rico Open and the Arnold Palmer Invitational. We've got Blue Bay LPGA on the LPGA Tour, obviously. And we've got a DP World Tour event. We've got a Corn Ferry Tour event. So we've got plenty to talk about, plenty to preview. But first, we've got to start with John Rahm's comments yesterday from their living event out in Hong Kong. Nick, I'll start with you. He said a lot. He said some pretty inflammatory things. Why don't you give us a little bit of a summary of what he was said and what you took from it mostly?
I think what he said could best be described by, I think it was Jay Don Takes on Twitter that described it perfectly now that live can, the acronym for live now stands for low viewership, incessant bitching, and victim mentality, is I think the best way to describe it. And I personally couldn't agree more. I think we've seen over the last year or so just the constant battle between live players and the DP World Tour. And, they've obviously accrued fines for playing in these non-sanctioned events without a release. And so a lot of these players, like Tyrrell Hatton, for example, are working towards paying off their fines and agreeing to certain terms in order to continue to play on the DP World Tour, which would in turn make them eligible for the Ryder Cup. All of them, I think it's eight of them that have agreed to it, with the exception being John Rahm. Now, he said that in his press conference that what they're having him do is commit to a minimum of six tournaments. So the minimum amount of tournaments you could play and retain DP World Tour membership in their rules is four events, and they are asking him to play six, and they are dictating what those six would be. Now, he says that he is going to be playing four events to close out the DP World Tour season. So he has his four picked out already that he said, but they're specifically telling him to play certain events, and he doesn't like that. And he feels that they're extorting players on live for just to sort of because they know that they move the needle and just trying to extort them there. But like I said, it's just I'm starting to get kind of sick of it, if I'm being honest. Like they don't I I can't think of any other sport in the world where like you would know, and this is a kind of different example, but you would never see Michael Jordan go and negotiate a contract and say, "Oh, well, actually, I only want to play 45 games, and you can't tell me to play more than that. Like I'll choose when I play." Like I think it was Roy McIlroy that said earlier in the year that the current golf landscape has gotten soft, and no other sport like picks and chooses when they play, and so they kind of just have to deal with it. So. You're not going to get any sympathy. John Rahm's not going to get any sympathy from me because they're forcing him to play two golf tournaments extra. He's
Yeah,
just not.
I completely agree. I think the one devil's advocate I would play is that, these guys are used to, like you said, golf in general is not like other sports in that you can kind of pick and choose here and there at least. Obviously you see like guys not playing the Cognizant last week, stuff like that. And to that extent, I can understand if you're in that mindset, in that trend, and then being told that, like, oh no, by the way, like you have to play these two specifically, otherwise you can't, like you said, all this really hinges on qualifying for the Ryder Cup, right? So it's like otherwise you can't qualify for the Ryder Cup, which is one of the things that even the guys who have gone to live, like, we know how much they care about that, how much any golfer cares about qualifying for the Ryder Cup. I can understand being annoyed. I do agree with you that we're, at this point it's kind of just like, if this was the only thing that Rom got annoyed about, right? Like if this was it, I'd be like, okay, I can kind of, but it's just because it's like more fuel to the same fire. It's like, okay, we've heard this 100 times, and now it just feels like we're nitpicking at everything, and like it's almost boy who cried wolf, right? Like you complain about so much stuff that at the end of the day, I'm like, you're not going to get any credit for me for complaining again, even though to me this one has a little bit more merit, just being annoyed, but like not enough merit. What did he say? They were extorting him? Like, you're not being
Yeah.
extorted, brother, unfortunately.
And
Yeah,
I'll
it was
raise
a
you one further, like to him to say, "Oh, they're telling me when I can play and not play." Like they all march when the Saudi Crown Prince plays his tune. They all march right in line and play all the events that they tell them to play. So it's only a problem when the DP World Tour tells him when he needs to play.
And six events is not not that many events. It's
Right.
two more. It's two more. It's like I get it. It's a nuisance. But by the way, like, you're gonna go make a ton of money to play those events. Like, you know,
yeah.
it definitely, while there's some merit maybe to being annoyed, there's definitely not merit to complaining about it to this degree.
Yeah, I mean, for him to use some of the language that he used in that press conference and stuff, he's on it. He's obviously trying to get a reaction and to make this news, which he did. But yeah, I agree. It's just an interesting line to draw at. But because he even said like, if they, I proposed to them the four and I would have signed it tonight, and they don't want to do that, and it's just like, what's going on? Who
And
cares?
that's really the only grievance that I could sort of give him or like grant him, I guess, is that they are changing the rules for him. Like the rule is
Yeah.
four, they're
Yeah.
making it six, essentially to punish him is what they're trying to do. But to that, I say, what did you expect? Like John Rahm seems to be one of the only players on the Live Golf League that still doesn't understand the impact of his decision. Like he still thinks he could just do whatever he wants and play any event. Like, no, you willingly took money to go play for a rival tour unsanctioned. And I don't even know why I'm getting so mad at this. I'm not even like an anti-live guy, but you have to at least have some kind of self-awareness. And John Rahm just lacks all of it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean Brody Miller wrote a good article
Bodie
in
Miller, great skier.
bro. That's what I was thinking. Still got the Winter Olympics on my mind.
Of
Brody
course.
Miller wrote a good article in the New York Times, and he had talked about how Rahm has always played four on the DP World Tour. And like Nick said, the crux of his argument is this quote. He said, I just don't like the situation. I think we should be able to freely play where we want and have the choice to play where we want and not dictate what we do, he said, especially myself. I can't speak for others, only myself. And I don't know. It's just like a little bit of a lack of awareness. Like this is how it's always been, and now you're just like, nope, it shouldn't be like that anymore. It's just a lack of awareness, I think.
And then I think one last thing to kind of, it's not like the world of golf is above amending the rules towards live players. Like we saw the PGA basically threw all of their rules out the window to get Brooks Koepka back, and they did extend that same courtesy to John Rahm. And so
Yeah.
we've seen like there is flexibility, there is a path to work with these players if they want it, but I don't see I think like is it kind of bogus that they're amending their rules to specifically force Rahm to play two more games or two more tournaments? I'm sorry. Like, yeah, it kind of is. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of dumb, but then it's not. Come on.
Yeah, it is a funny, like, it does feel like they're doing it just to do it, which I think is part of what you said it better than I could, Nick, but part of what I was trying to say when I was saying that this argument has a little bit of merit compared to what he and other live golfers typically complain about. But again, like, to complain to this extent and claim extortion is we're going a little far there, buddy. Like, let's reel it in. You're gonna go make a ton of money to play two more golf events. I think it'll all be okay. But it kind of rings back to, like, or harkens back to the DeChambeau talking about, well, we didn't sign up for 72 holes. Like, that's just like, things change. Like, you gotta, like, and when you sign up for a new unsanctioned tour, especially, things change, rules change, exceptions change. Like, if you're gonna and obviously DeChambeau's case is a little bit different, but if you're going to sign up for a tour like Live Golf that's like so early on and is trying to, you know, commentary aside on whether or not it's been successful, but is trying to break the mold, like, there's gonna be things that change, and to complain every single time that something changes is just not productive, and like shows me that you, like you said, are don't really have a great perspective on what this is, what you chose to do, and how it will develop.
Mhm. And I think I if he doesn't want to play those two events, like he shouldn't play them. And I support him. I support him doing what he wants to do. That being said, if he chooses to go down this road, I don't want to hear a peep in 2027 when he's not eligible for the Ryder Cup. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he's not getting any sympathy from anybody. And even if he's got a point here, it's just not probably not the place or the time. But I think that's plenty on John Rahm. We've given him enough of our time.
I feel better.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Will, you want to take us through who's in on the Aon Swing 5 and the Aon Next 10, and then a little course history and course fit for us here at Bay Hill?
For sure. Just to start before even jumping into it is like I this is like the part of the calendar where things to me like really start to we get into real golf. I know we had the Genesis, I know we had the AT&T Pebble Beach, but you get the obviously this week the Arnold Palmer, and then you get the Players, and then we are in full blown like major golf territory. So this is a great it's like it feels like the start of the obviously the Genesis feels like the start of the real season too, but this feels like when we're starting to get really into the meat of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, we had a little bit of movement on the AN Swing 5 and Next 10 to get a couple extra guys into the field. Nikolai Højgaard kind of headlines that after a really good finish last week at the Cognizant, especially a great weekend to get up on the AN Swing 5. I won't list them all, but other names include Keith Mitchell, who jumped up into the Swing 5. And the Next 10 obviously doesn't change quite as much because it is a longer term type of ranking. But your boy Jake Knapp, Kyle, still sits atop
Woo.
that leaderboard, and Nico Echeverria with that win last week kind of climbed up into second, followed by Minwoo Lee, Pearson Coody, and a couple of the other guys we've seen good play from the past few weeks, including Sahith Theegala, who I'm glad to see. He hung on to the 10th spot in the Aon Swing Next 10. I'm glad to see him in the field. We've seen a lot of up and down play from him this year, and this is a good again getting into the meat of the season. This is a real test of golf, and good players tend to win this event, which I think is kind of the headline that I think of when I think of Bay Hill. Obviously, you have some exceptions to that. There's Kurt Kitayama a couple years ago was one of the few who kind of came out of nowhere to take this one, but broadly, I mean, guys like Scotty Scheffler have won it twice. Rory's won it. Tiger Woods famously won this thing 8 times. And if that doesn't tell you that good golfers like this golf course, I don't know what does. Obviously, Russell Henley last year as well. But yeah, it's a great tournament. I'm curious to I'll open it up before I get into a bunch of guys that I like this week, that I don't like this week, or that I'm looking at. But it is a really fun tournament. And like I said, I think it does, lend itself to good golf and good leaderboards, which is, always the best way to watch golf when the big names are up near the top.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Like this is when it starts to feel like really good golf. I feel like I've read a lot of discourse on social media over the last few days, just almost criticizing Bay Hill, saying that it's not the greatest of courses on tour. That being said, everybody that has complained about Bay Hill has recanted it about the Arnold Palmer Invitational, saying that, it might not be the greatest course, but by God, does it produce some of the best tournaments each and every year.
Hmm.
I think back to probably my favorite memory. This is one of my favorite golf memories of all time, was when Bryson, which I
Hmm.
remember just talking with my brother like last week, and being like, remember when Bryson DeChambeau was slamming like 9 protein shakes a day and like 7 fillets? Like dude is just on a generational like bulking period during the pandemic. But um, I remember all day reading that the wind was going to play into his favor on, was it hole five or was it hole seven or hole five?
Oh,
The
I don't have my sheet up, but
yeah,
the par five around the water, the big bends around the pond there.
yeah, exactly. And I remember we were all in the living room waiting to see whether like when Bryson got up to the tee, like we all stopped talking, we all crowded around the TV and just watched him hit like power it over the water. Like that to me, like I know he's no longer here. I know he's no longer on tour, but to me, that's one of the most special golf memories watching the PGA Tour that I've had. And
Yeah.
once again, that's what makes Bay Hill so special in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, to first, I want to say something about Bryson because I do like Bryson a lot. Those protein shakes were like the most performative protein shakes. They were working, obviously. I mean, he put on a ton of weight, but I think like I remember those like in that same period, like the when it started going viral, like oh, at what Bryson has in his protein shake, and it was like Gatorade and protein powder. It was just like the grossest concoction of God knows what that like the most like male brained like I'm just gonna get big. I eat food for fuel, not for taste kind of mentality. But that being said, like you were saying, Nick, it's like kind of the antithesis of what we had last week, right? Like Cognizant is fairly unassuming and uninspiring uh, set of players and golf tournament, but the course, like, lends itself to good finishes and kind of gives you a good reason to watch with the bear trap and everything, like we saw this weekend, caused a lot of drama. And this is kind of the opposite. Like, I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, I think Bay Hill's a fine course. I don't think it stands out as like one of the worst on PGA Tour at all. Um, but it really is this tournament and the fact that we get, pretty much anybody who is like everyone who can play this event plays this event pretty much. Like
Right.
this is kind of the first, there's a couple of those early in the year and this is one of them. And it's a great, switch up from Cognizant last year or last week, sorry. But yeah, I mean, Scheffler's back in literally everybody's back in the field and it, like I said, it's tough. I think we'll get into picks a little bit more, but just like from super high level, it's tough looking at this thing and not being like, man, it's like Scotty and Rory versus the world, right? Like this week. I mean, Rory's won it and has like great course history here, which we'll get into. Scotty's won it twice and has a couple other good finishes. And then everybody else kind of I have reason to be like, I'm not so sure. I don't necessarily see it, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, especially with, kind of I mean, bad play is such an over exaggeration, but like the hiccups we've seen in Scotty's game over the past few events that he's played. Rory had some mistakes of his own, but has looked good. So it'll be really interesting. I would be not that surprised to see one of those two guys like kind of just put pedal to the metal and run away with this thing. But I'd also, I'd hope that one of the guys kind of around, what 10th or something on the odds board can put together a good run and challenge them because this is a course that, what's interesting actually, not to get off track, is that there hasn't been a playoff here since 1989.
Wow.
What it's like ridiculous, but somehow 13 of the last 22 tournaments were decided by one stroke, but there hasn't been a single playoff, which feels impossible statistically. Makes absolutely no sense, but it is true. Um, but like I said, so it like even though you don't see playoffs, you do see close tournaments, and who knows? Maybe we'll see a playoff this year for the first time. And I can't do math that quickly, but what is that? 36 years? Actually, I wrote it down. 36 iterations of the event. So yes, 36 years. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. If you're leaning more towards like big guns, like those guys at the top, or if you think there's a good chance for somebody to challenge.
You brought up something interesting just about, just having Scotty and Rory in the field. And it got me thinking just something I read on X, Twitter, whatever, yesterday. And it said that I forget who said it, but it said, for all like Scotty's number one, Rory's number two, like it's been like that for a long time. And yet the only time we've ever really seen the two of them just kind of duke it out, like on a Sunday was, I think, the 2022 Tour Championship and we haven't really had any of that ever since. Whereas I remember, I think was it 2023, like the first half of 2023, it was Rahm versus Scotty, like just
Hmm.
constantly, like the two of them just going at it every single week. And so this doesn't really have a point. Actually, I don't even know why I'm bringing this up, but it's just kind of interesting to think about that we haven't really had like an epic showdown between the two of them in quite some time, Scotty and Rory.
No, I mean I can't really think of like even beyond Rory. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting something blatantly obvious. But in terms of just like really, really top end talent, like I'm talking like top two or three or four in the world, right? Like I feel like we haven't had big stage, Rawls in a while. I can't remember. I'm sure again I'm missing something, but at least on the major stage, like between, obviously Scotty's won a couple and he's won a couple by a handful of shots too, but like just between like I'm not counting Rory and Justin Rose as like a major, like that doesn't really count. I'm talking like, top three, four in the world, like a Rory or a Scotty or even a Rory and a Xander at a major or something like that, it feels like we haven't seen a ton of that. And hopefully this week changes that. I would love to see, you know, a good old fashioned Tiger v Phil, Scotty v Rory type of event here. And this course lends itself to it. Again, these guys both have pretty fantastic course history, and it sounds dumb to say that their course fits because they're the best golfers in the world. Like their course fits literally everywhere. But it's true. I mean, they have great course history here, and it lends to their games, which is the best games in the world. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can see a little bit of that. But it's true, we haven't in a while.
Yeah, I mean it'll be, the storylines at least. Everybody's going to be looking for Scotty to see how he comes out in that first round. Obviously, it's been a few weeks since we've seen him. Rory hasn't played on tour since the Invitational. Of course, he's had some huge TGL matches in between there, but not officially on tour. So, just for those two guys right there, it'll be fun to see. And then you just have so many of the top guys, like you said, everybody's going to want to see how Shane Lowry bounces back after last week. Tommy is
Mhm.
up there. Colin is up there again after winning in Pebble, of course. And Hideki after his WM collapse. There's just so many storylines from earlier in the season that even though this is still only the eighth FedEx Cup event, it still feels like we've had so much happen, and there's so much storylines just from the action we've had so far this season, which makes this even more fun being the third signature event so far.
Yeah, and I think to kind of talk about what you were just saying, to mention one of the guys you mentioned is Shane Lowry. I think this is like the perfect bounce back opportunity. He's one of the guys I have in my notes here that like he's all things point to him being a pretty good golfer here. I mean, seventh and third in the last 2 years. And it like you said, it's just a great chance for him to prove that like, no, this isn't in my head. Like I'm good. Like I'm fine. That was a hiccup. That was whatever. Like you said, I mean, he like we talked about on Monday, he doesn't even really accredit it to feeling pressure, right? The mistakes he made. He's like, I don't even know what that was. And this is a good chance for him to be like to prove that to me because these guys are so different from us, obviously, but I would be just in my brain so deep in there after an event like that and trying to come back out here and perform on a stage like the Arnold Palmer. But these guys can do it, and I think Shane has a great opportunity to. He's played well here before, and there's no reason to think he won't again.
One guy that I was surprised was so high on the leaderboard, and either of you guys can touch on him if you want, was Xander Schauffele. Feels like we haven't seen him play in a while, and I mean, I think he's got like the fourth best odds.
Yeah, I actually I thought about this a lot, and I'm still on the fence of picking him for the week. He's somebody that I considered a lot. He's played really not great here. Like in four starts here, he's done no better than T24, which I think is the bad part. In any other event, like where if he had decent history, I'd be pretty confident in picking him to play really well. His game's been trending up a ton this season. He was cut at the Farmers, obviously horrible start, but then T41 at WM, T19 at AT&T, and T7 at the Genesis. Rounding into form, and we know him as a really accurate golfer who managed to add a bunch of distance a couple years ago without really sacrificing a lot of that accuracy. Um, and which has got him two major victories in 2024. So I like in almost any other instance, I'd be like, man, Xander's like a guy to watch this week. And he still is for sure. And I can kind of understand why he's high up there on the leaderboard, but or on the odds board. But at the same time, it feels to me, just looking at the betting odds, right? Like other guys who have none or bad course experience here seem to be getting fairly harshly dinged, or harsh is maybe the wrong word, but like for example, guys like Jake Knapp, I think he's like, where is he, like 12th or 13th in the odds, something like that. I
Yeah,
can't quite,
he's right,
like
right
around
around
there,
there.
right? And he has the only finish he has here is a T57 a couple years ago. But I think he's better. Like he's playing better than the 13th best golfer in the world right now. And like those guys up at the top too. Like this course should fit his game. He hits the ball far. He hits the ball pretty straight. And he's playing like I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. He's playing pretty much like the second or third best golfer in the world, at least like to start this season. He has been. Um, so it's odd to me to see him. I mean, I have to assume that the reason he's 13th and behind some of the guys he's behind is in part due to the fact that he has little to no good course history here, and Xander doesn't either. So I kind of agree that I'm surprised. It feels like he's not getting penalized, I guess, is what I'm getting at for that poor play here in the past. But at the same time, all other signs other than that poor play like point to a great week for Xander. So I'm really on the fence with him, and I'm not sure quite what to expect, but you know, hopefully we get a little something out of him because he's a guy I'd like to see rebound back into that 2024 form that he had.
And I'll take it back to someone who does have some course history. I think I'm gonna give Matt Fitzpatrick another chance this week. I
Mm,
think just looking at how he's played at Bay Hill from 2019 to 2022, second, T9, T10, T9. He
Pretty good.
has, yeah, and then T14 in 2023, cut in 2024, but T22 in 2025. He's been a very good player here, and I think he's definitely someone that I would want to keep an eye on in all facets of the game. I'd say he's probably a really good pick. Driving accuracy, he's very good. His approach is one of the best players on tour right now around the green and it's extremely solid. My one concern with him is the putting. Um, on Data Golf, I'm looking at it right now. The only event where he has actually gained strokes on the putting green was at Pebble, and that was 0.14, so minimally. Whereas every year at Bay Hill when he has contended, his putter's been on. So maybe he just puts well at Bay Hill. So that's a possibility. I think a lot of what he does, I trust him to be accurate. I trust him to hit those fairways, to hit the greens, but it's just gonna be a question of whether the putter is on. But I don't know. Heading into the week, I feel it in my gut. Like I trust the gut right now about Matt Fitzpatrick. Maybe it's fate, maybe it's the meatball sub I had for lunch, but I feel it in my gut nevertheless.
Meatball sub, Jesus. It's definitely the meatball sub. I don't think that's Matt Fitzpatrick. Yeah, man. To round out what you're talking about with like some of the best golfers in the world, which I think Matt Fitzpatrick qualifies. Um, the last one I want to talk about is Colin Morikawa. I think he is kind of similar to Xander in my head that he like all signs point to a great week here. Like obviously he got the win, and he got the win a couple weeks ago, and played well at both signature events too, not just the one he won. Um, and he's a very very accurate golfer. Like that's what he's built his career on is like iron like approach play and accurate off the tee, which has gone up and down a little bit over the past couple of years, but he seems to be in good form. I think he should play quite well. And he was solo second or not. Yeah, it was solo second here last year for Colin. So I was actually kind of like a little bit of a collapse to let Russell Henley take that one. But nonetheless, good course history, even though it had a little asterisk on the end there. But some of the guys that I think are a little farther off the beaten path, I guess I should say, that have had really good results here in the past are guys like Corey Connors, who again,
yeah.
like you think about accuracy and like you think about Corey Connors. He's been T21 or better in each of the last 5 years, which includes two third place finishes and an 11th place a couple years ago. And I believe he's in the past 5 years of players in the field this week, he's the best in strokes gained per round at the Arnold Palmer approach specifically, which makes sense. I mean, that's like his game. Like if his approach is off, he's not going to be anywhere near the top of the leaderboard. But I feel like Corey's one of those guys. Corey Connors is one of those guys that I feel like you see him near the top of these leaderboards, like way more than you think you would at good events. He's been near the top of the Masters leaderboard a couple of times. He seems to always get bit by the Sunday bug or the Saturday bug a little bit. He kind of comes out of the gates really hot, and you'll look up on Friday and he's, at the top of the leaderboard or close to it. And
Hmm.
then come Sunday, he's around 12th or 15th or something like that. But he's definitely a guy to watch out for maybe early in the tournament. I mean, he hasn't been playing like particularly great recently, but I'm not sure that matters with guys who have that skill set of like he's built on accuracy, and this is a course that rewards it. Now, I don't get me wrong, I'm not really looking at him to win. I don't think that's like he's not going to be somebody I pick, but I'm curious to see how he performs because he like I said, third last year, third in 2021, 11th in 2022. He finds his way to the top of these leaderboards, and he's kind of the one that jumps off the page in terms of course history for guys that aren't um, Scotty Scheffler and the like. But I know, Nick, there is somebody else you've been considering beyond Matt Fitzpatrick that, I mean, he's a name like Scotty Scheffler a little bit, but in terms of OWGR, he's a little off the beaten path. So I think he counts for this category. Anybody? I can't remember his name. Anybody you might want to
A
mention?
name like Scotty Scheffler. What are we doing?
Yeah,
Hey, 2015 Jordan Spieth, man, come on.
What year
Texas's
is it?
finest.
Or did we transport back?
Yeah, it's a decade. It's an anniversary. We got to celebrate.
Okay,
Exactly.
this is everybody. This is the part of the pod everybody looks forward to. Nick, go for it.
Yep.
Tell us why
Game
Spieth's gonna
faces, boys.
win.
That Oh man. I it's interesting with Jordan. He has played very well at Bay Hill. I think it was one of I think Will, you said it, your metrics of I think strokes gained around Bay Hill over the last 5 years. He's the highest ranked player not named Scotty Scheffler or Rory McIlroy, if that's correct.
I believe it was something like that. Yeah, let me pull it up right now. Yeah, definitely in yeah, that's correct. I believe 1 point. Yeah, he's up there. He's one of the top few, if not the second,
So he
in the
had
last 5 years. Yeah, he's got the two. I'll let you take it, but the two fourth place finishes kind of carry that.
So just looking at, this is as Kyle said, this is the part of the podcast where I move heaven and earth to make Jordan Spieth win this tournament. And so Jordan Spieth plays this event. 2021, when he was on his bit of resurgence, he was T4. 2023, T4 with a hole in one, I believe, if I'm correct there. This is a course where he has had success. This is where he's played very well. I'm not sold on the driver right now. I think it was dicey at best at Riviera, excuse me. I think it has potential. I think the beauty of this course is that I'd say distance is more so rewarded rather than accuracy, and I think he's in position to benefit from that. I think the putter has been prime Jordan Spieth over the last two events. And so if that carries over, I think we definitely can be in business there. But I'm hesitant. I'm not ready to pick him for a tournament win just yet. But that being said, I said this before we got on. If he gets in the top 10 this week, he is my pick for the Masters. I don't make the rules. Just we're rocking with it.
You have to, unfortunately.
And so is Jordan Spieth going to win this week? I don't have the jinxing power of Will, but he's probably not going to win this week. I'll be nice and say probably not going to win.
If you need a
But
jinx, it's a just a small fee of like a couple $1,000s, and I'm happy to utter his name and try to get him to the top of the leaderboard for you.
yeah, I was going to say is the prove me wrong guy, like, is that booked already, or like, can we do it
It
in
is,
advance, or
unfortunately. It is booked. I'm doing a little something different with my I'm doing prove me wrong guys this week. I'm
okay.
doing prove me wrong themes for both the Arnold Palmer and the Puerto Rico Open, which we'll talk about a little more briefly. But I guess I might as well jump into those guys. My prove me wrong guys this week are the fast starters of 2026 who have kind of like left the scene pretty abruptly. And those to put names to some slander is Ryan Gerard and Chris Gotterup. Both of them started fantastic. Obviously, Chris Gotterup's got the two wins, Sony Open and WM, along with the T18 in his first three starts. Ryan Gerard started the season with two straight second place finishes, as well as a T11 at the Farmers. Um, Chris Gotterup did not play the Cognizant, I don't believe, but oh, sorry, he did. He missed, or sorry, no, he did not. He missed the cut at the two signature events, and Ryan Gerard was T23 at the Cognizant, and his two worst finishes of the year, the T45 and T28, were those two signature events as well. Kind of time to prove it to me a little bit, that it wasn't just an early season. Not everybody's in the field. Especially that WM Phoenix Open win for Chris Gotterup. Well deserved, but took a Hideki collapse to get there and a fairly miraculous run of birdies down the stretch, which he, to his credit, made. He made those birdies, so I can't fault him for that. But if it's time to put up or shut up, kind of, right? Like it's like we've seen really good play. We haven't seen it in the biggest tournaments of the year. Um, and I think, frankly, Chris Gotterup, I'm especially interested in this week. He's one of those guys I mentioned earlier that is being penalized for not having any course experience here. It's his first time playing out here. But in theory, like somebody that matches up with this course pretty well in my mind. Like I think again, this course is like what makes this course this tournament great is that like the best golfers tend to be at the top because it rewards all around good play. So it's a little tongue in cheek to say that he fits the course because good golfers tend to. But I do think that he has an opportunity, especially to show that it wasn't just those two events, the Sony, the WM, and some early season luck
And this is
to
his
get his.
debut at the Arnold Palmer, I believe, right? Got for
Yes,
Gotterup.
yeah, yeah, it is his debut. Never been out here before, which typically isn't a great thing. If you look at
Hmm.
guys who have won in the past, you've got past like Russell Henley was fourth the year before he won. So was Scotty Scheffler. It's really just Kurt Kitayama that didn't have any experience. Pretty much everybody just looking at in the 5 years prior to their wins, pretty much everybody's got a top 10 or a top 15 if you want to stretch it to add a couple more guys in. But it is only Kurt Kitayama that didn't play this event and won it. And again, that was a bit of I wouldn't, that's not, that's the exception that proves the rule, right? Like that's not something I would expect to happen again this year. But I also think Chris Gotterup's a lot better of a golfer than Kurt Kitayama was when he won it. So, but anyways, prove me wrong, Ryan Gerard, Chris Gotterup. It's time to do it in a real event. And I count the WM as like half of a real event because it's got the big guys, but it it's not a signature, and it's time to see it in a signature if you want to be one of the guys that's going to be really up there in the FedEx Cup come August, come July, which we're a ways away from. But those are my two guys.
Nick, what are your thoughts there? Will's had a couple good last couple events with his prove me wrong guys after that rough start. What do you think of these two?
I mean, I gotta agree in terms of Chris Gotterup at least. I feel like, it's kind of hard to say that he's like a small tournament merchant when he did win the WM. I think, and I'm not saying that's what you said, but I think, like you said, it hasn't been overly impressive at the signature events. So I think, yeah, I certainly agree that this is certainly, and I don't think he needs to win
No,
in order to solidify himself, but you have to do better than T37 in my opinion. And I think if you can at least be competitive, at least be in contention, then I think we can start to take Chris Goddard up seriously here.
you got to show up on the main feed on Sunday twice. That's the
Yes.
rule I'm going to go with. They got to show a couple shots yours and be like, oh, look at this guy making a birdie on 15 when the leaders are on three.
I mean, to be fair,
Um,
didn't they show him like only twice on Sunday in Phoenix?
Yeah, that's probably true. No, yeah, it came from nowhere. Yeah, maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he needs to be five shots back or whatever it was with a couple to play. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to do you want
I'll
to
throw
shout at any other?
I'll
Go
throw
ahead.
two other guys who we've got listed here. Tommy Fleetwood, who of course we just know is a big golf player. He shows up in these events. He's right in the two signatures so far this year. He's got a T4 and a T7 at Genesis and Pebble Beach. Always play well. Coming off his huge win for LA Golf Club last night at TGL, the guy just rolls with the punches. He's played here. This will be his 10th start here, so he's got a ton of familiarity at this course. Up and down history, he's been cut twice, T61 once, but he does have four top tens. Most recently, he was T11 in 2025. So, he's third on the odds board. Wouldn't be a bad pick. And then one other guy I will throw out there is Minwoo Lee, who really has just played pretty well this year to start. Um, and at Pebble, right, he had a chance to catch Colin there. And just after familiarizing myself with him, he just seems like a cool dude and someone to root for
Yeah,
too.
dude, Minwoo, when I was trying to pick my players this week, like the three guys I was really considering Xander, Jake Knapp, Minwoo are the guys I really like this week. Obviously, like I talked about Xander having bad course experience here, Jake Knapp kind of in the same boat, um, Minwoo Lee kind of in the same boat, a little bit of a trend, but man, it's like I'm thinking it's like my brain's making decisions or a certain other part of my body is making decisions. And when it's my brain, I'm like, dude, Xander Schauffele, what are we talking about? Like he's a great golfer. Like pick that guy, he's proven. And then a certain other part of me is like, man, but Minwoo Lee would be so sick. Like it would
Yeah.
be so cool. But after my Mac Meissner performance last week, I don't think I can really put Minwoo in as my pick, but I would like I agree with everything you said. I think he's kind of turning from what was a little bit of a meme golfer, right? Like the last couple of years where he was on TikTok edits and all
Mm.
over Instagram and showed up occasionally. It's not to say that it hasn't played well.
Just
Obviously,
gotta let
he's
him cook.
yeah, it's got a lot of cook exactly, but it does feel like he's kind of becoming more of like oh no, we like need to think about this guy as somebody that could be near the top of the leaderboard on Sunday at the Arnold Palmer, like that kind of guy. Where I'm not saying I wasn't taking him seriously to any degree, but he's playing more real golf. I feel like and more consistently good golf recently. So yeah, this is definitely an opportunity for him to prove that as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's probably going to be like you're going to have a tough time picking him until you see him win. I think he only has one
Yeah.
win on the PGA
Mhm.
Tour, but he was T2 at Pebble, he was T12 at the Genesis. He's played well this year. So, wouldn't be surprised to see him up in the leaderboard as we come to the weekend is all I'm saying. Okay, that I think covers a bunch of it. We will put our official picks out on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere on our socials. So, everybody, you can look at Will and Nick's picks if you want to. I'll be putting mine out there too, so you have a chance at getting a winner actually.
Yeah, I think you should probably
Um,
look at Kyle's. Let's be
yeah,
honest with ourselves here.
we'll put there up. Okay, so Puerto Rican Open next. Will, what are you thinking here for a little course overview and fit and history?
Yeah, we won't take quite as long on the Puerto Rico Open as we did on the Arnold Palmer, despite the fact that they're like prestigious, pretty much on the same level. That's sarcasm, obviously, because this is very similar to what we had at the Cognizant, if not to a further extreme. There's two players inside the top 50 in OWGR in the field, eight players inside the top 100, and this event has been won by a player inside the top 100. This is in the last 17 times it's been played. Has been won by a player inside the top 100 the same amount of times it's been won by a player outside the top 400 in OWGR,
Wow.
which is twice. So really anything can happen. This is just a nightmare, a nightmare pick. Um, in
Has
terms of
there has
course,
has there ever
go
been
ahead.
a winner who has a hole in one on a TGL course though?
Not yet, but I heard that
Okay.
might be happening this weekend. It is a great shout for time to Neil Shipley to prove it. But it's a good course. I mean, I remember how for so long this was like talked about as the event that if you won it, you were screwed. Like if you won it, you were not winning another event. I know Finau held that crown for quite some time before he finally disproved it. But I mean, it's like just looking through the list of winners. Carl Phillips last year at 26 under, Bryce Garnett, Nico Echeverria. Shout out to our guy, really building quite the resume between this, the Zozo, and the Cognizant. And Ryan Brem in 2022, Brandon Grace in 2021, and Victor Hovland in 2020 stands out quite a bit. And obviously, like I said, Tony Finau in 2016. And looking at this, I won't take too long, but looking at this the board here, it's like, man, there's a because this event is secondary, obviously, to the Arnold Palmer, and just because it's not a particularly prestigious event, there's not a lot of guys that play this event year over year. Like
Mhm.
it's and also not to mention they don't really have shot link data down there. Um, but uh, yeah, there's not a lot to work with here, but it is worth mentioning that some guys do. Matty Schmid has played quite well here in the past. Bryce Garnett, and obviously there's some really interesting debuts that are going on. So this week, some debuts, some young guys in the field that I think are really the headline here, because they'll be the reason to watch. The guys like obviously I won't take too much of it, but John Daly making his PGA Tour. John Daly the second, to be clear, not
Yes.
the major winner, making his PGA Tour debut.
Yeah, no, we'd love to see, we've been watching John Daly II grow up basically, just playing the father son, the PNC every year. We've been seeing him really, really grow into one of the top collegiate golfers in the nation, someone that, we've been waiting for this for a very long time. And just to see him make his debut, I think I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that everybody's going to be watching, um, as well as Blades Brown. I think we've talked about him a bunch so far this year. He's been pretty good on events we've seen. He's still chasing his first professional win, but you think it's going to happen at some point. He'd be an interesting guy I'd be looking at this week.
Yeah, and then I think the beauty of these smaller events is that they're not so much in terms of the headliners, they're in terms of like who is sort of getting their shot. And so obviously we mentioned John Daly, Blades Brown, Miles Russell, still the youngest player to ever make the cut on the Corn Ferry Tour. Um, another PGA Tour University alums, we got Luke Clanton, who tied for third at the Seminole Pro Member alongside Nick Dunlap. So it looks like he figured out the driver, Nick Dunlap. And yeah, that's one thing we did talk about. Roy McIlroy and his father won the Seminole Pro Member with a
Saw
with a score of
that.
63. I mean, God, I'd love to be Roy McIlroy right now.
Yeah,
Like,
seriously.
what a life, man. Like, life is great. So Will had the dip, but he listed two of his prove me wrongs for Puerto Rico as well. He's got the two Utes, to quote my cousin Vinny. Um, Luke Clanton again. So he says, uh, obviously a great amateur career, but just hasn't really translated on the PGA Tour so far. Three missed cuts and a withdraw in four events so far, and then another hot amateur turned disappointing PGA player, Gordon Sargent. Um, no, no real essence to his game except for just distance off the tee. And once again, four missed cuts in 2026. So hopefully, maybe it's coming out of my mouth, so take it with a grain of salt, but we'll see. We'll see if Will can inspire these guys a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's pretty much Puerto Rico right there.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good wrap on it. We covered a bunch of guys who are going to be there, and I think there's some stuff worth watching, and definitely checking in on the leaderboard as the week goes on. Rasmus Højgaard is the favorite right now at plus 1050. So, we'll see what happens there. It'll be a fun tournament to watch.
Yeah,
Okay, and
I
then
will, I'll make one prediction while the
mhm.
meatball sub is still fighting around in there. But Seamus Power is the guy who I like. I feel like he's someone that is always around at these sort of smaller tournament events. He's I didn't want to say it about Chris Gotterup. I will say it about Seamus Power. He is a small tournament merchant, and he's someone that is always just in the conversation and contention at these tournaments, and I could see it happening.
Ooh, I love that. He's got the 10th best odds right now at plus 3,300. So that wouldn't be a bad little sprinkle right there if you're a
I
true
mean, we're
degenerate.
and we're taking Seamus Power right before St. Patrick's Day. Like it lines up. So
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, and then we can breeze through these last three tournaments here. We've got the LPGA is in China, a little lesser of a field than was last week, where they had a ton of ladies from the top 50 in there. Anything you're looking at here? Anything significant you want to mention about Blue Bay?
uh yeah, I think this is a course where we haven't really seen this a lot. There was no tournament in 2019 due to a scheduling conflict, and then from 2020 to 2023, there was simply no tournament just because of the pandemic. This is a tournament where, it's a bit longer off the tee. It's about 6,700 yards, but these players still find a way to go low. I think the winning score, Rio Takeda
Yeah.
in 2025, 17 under, Bailey Tardy, 19 under at the last in 2024 before that. So this is a course where I think they can go low, and I'm certainly, once again, it's going to be happening all while we're getting our beauty sleep, sadly, but definitely something to keep an eye on for this week.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun event. There's only three of the top 25 from the Rolex rankings, but you do have 22 of 28 LPGA Tour rookies in the field. So I mean that's definitely something interesting to keep an eye on. You're seeing a bunch of the up and comers on this Asian swing that they're on. So I think there's plenty to pay attention to there. Okay, and then we've got DP World Tour, we've got Corn Ferry Tour, and we've got Live Golf. Any of those worth mentioning, Nick?
I think I've said my piece on Live.
I think you've said plenty on that as well. Okay, awesome. So we will have our official picks and everything out on our socials. Of course, we will be tracking the tournaments live as they are happening. Nick and Will both do a great job blasting our Twitter and our Instagram, following the rounds as they happen, coming up with TikToks afterwards, kind of talking about the rounds of the day and stuff that we look forward to the weekend. So always find us on Twitter at Center Cup Pod, our Instagram and TikTok at centercup.pod, and email us at centercup.pod@yahoo.com. And as always, we will be with you on Monday, recapping everything that happened. And then Wednesday, we'll be getting ready for the Players' Championship, which will be very exciting. So we've got a full weekend of golf ahead. I can't wait. It's going to be really fun. Nick,
Yeah.
any last words?
No, it's always great to have golf on the TV. It's definitely going to be a good day to be a couch.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And as always, thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.